Zealand Richlister Stephen Jennings was here talking about growing inequality. Now, he blames our education system, and I wanted to bring this up because Chris Hipkins, he's the education man for Labour. Is he right?
I don't think the education system is failing kids from poorer backgrounds. I think the whole of society is failing kids from poorer backgrounds. I don't think that schools can be expected to make up for every social ill within society. I think schools do an amazing job, but there is absolutely no question that kids from poorer backgrounds don't do as well.
But Stephen Jennings is saying, quote, Maori and Pacifika are being left behind to a degree that you don't see in other countries.
Oh, absolutely, but socioeconomics plays a huge part in that, and I don't think that we as a society are doing enough to level out inequality.
Here's a guy who's involved in markets across the world, and he's saying that we're failing, Chris. What do you reckon, Richard Prosser? What do you think about this? Do you agree with Stephen Jennings?
Oh, no, I'd be more likely to agree with Chris, actually. I think you can't blame the schools for the society's faults. When I was at school, we didn't have deciles. You know, we had one school and everybody went to it because it was a country area. So we didn't have that.
Did you have a good education growing up?
I believe I did, yes.
A world-class education?
I think it was pretty good. And I don't think it set me back in life. You know.
What about you, Paul?
Well, look, part of what I disagree with what he said was around teachers and unions. Attacking the profession isn't actually the source of the problem. But if you look at the experts and people within the system, the funding model does need a look at. What deciles do is they tag schools as being good schools. People perceive them as a measurement of quality.
He says you've got a situation, you can't have a situation where 99% of teachers go through an appraisal system and are promoted. That's the problem. Chris, what about that?
No, I don't necessarily agree with that. First of all, I don't think that those statistics are correct. I think he's clearly just made those numbers up.
No, but that's the case generally, though, isn't it? No, you haven't got solid performance appraisals in the teacher system in New Zealand.
I think that we can do better with appraisal, but if you look at teacher turnover, there's no evidence to suggest that people are just simply being promoted up through the system. There's just no evidence to suggest that.
All right, we'll come back to you guys. Hayley's got a guest.
Well, someone in the know, Jack Boyle, the Junior Vice President of the PPTA. Do you think Stephen had a point?
There's one little bit that I can agree with what Stephen Jennings had to say, and that is we do have an unequal society. Unfortunately, it is becoming more unequal. But I think it's a very long bow to try and vilify teachers and unions for out-of-school factors.
But you can't argue with the fact that Decile 1 schools are better resourced and better funded than the Decile 10 schools. They have more stuff.
You can argue with that, actually. Decile weighting is about 2 to 3% of the amount of funding that goes into the education system, or from the education system into schools. And when you look at decile 8, 9, 10 schools who can rely on massive amounts of parent donations and foreign fee-paying students, there is simply no relativity between the two. I would like to say a couple of things with regards to what our friends over here have had to say. The 2015 TELUS report shows that New Zealand teachers are amongst the most highly qualified and effective teachers in the world.
Are they all good teachers?
All right.
I think that we have a very robust appraisal system, and I think that it actually shows somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about when they say 99% of teachers get promoted no matter what.
Oh, well, that's not necessarily what these stats say. Back to you, Wallace.
Very interesting. And I want to maybe in the audience, did your teacher make a difference? Last week I had my art school teacher in the pub, and he made a real difference to me. Did a teacher make a difference to you? Was there a really good teacher? And who was it?
A couple of amazing teachers.
Who?
Siobhan McSweeney at Whangarei Boys High, Decile 5, state school, best French teacher, wonderful English teacher.
Okay, then, so we have the best teachers, some of the best teachers in the world. Why can't we pay them more?
Well, look, I mean, we're reviewing the funding.
Why can't we pay them more?
We're reviewing the funding model, and one thing that is off the table is bulk funding. So we're not talking about schools actually negotiating down teachers' salaries, but we are targeting extra funds into schools so that we can help the kids who are the most vulnerable. That is what we need to do in this system.
What do we value teachers in New Zealand, do you reckon? Do we pay them what they're worth?
No, I'd like to see them paid a lot more, but just coming back to that point, Wallace, the best teacher I ever had, Mr. Hodge at Hutt Intermediate, and he was a fantastic teacher because he focused a lot less on test results and a lot more on developing us as people. And I think that the education system has become far too focused on getting kids to pass tests and not focused enough on developing them as people.
Do you agree with that, Richard?
Yeah, I
Do
do.
you agree with that?
I do. Chippy's right on
Less
that.
teaching to the test, more creativity.
Look, I was going to say the most effective teachers, the ones that I learnt most from and had most respect for.
Who were they?
They were a couple of guys who had been tradesmen before they became teachers. They taught me technical drawing.
Names?
Bruce Ratcliffe and, well, I'll think of the other one shortly. But the fact is, the point is that they'd been out in the real world, they'd done something else, past university obviously, and then done something else, then gone back to become teachers, gone back into the classroom, and they brought real world, real life skills with them.
All right.
That I think we need more of.
Teaching to the test, more creativity. Oh, that's a point. But I wanted, Hayley, what teacher influenced you?
All right,
Hayley?
Shah, you heard the question.
I did. What teacher influenced? My PE teacher. She was amazing. She came from really good grounded sort of lady, and I was private school educated, but she actually brought out everything in our skills, got us rough, got us ready, and actually was a real person that associated with us and connected with us as students.
Do you think they're worth more than they're valued at right now?
I think we value teachers in the early days as being someone that was our mentor and our friend, but teachers today do an amazing job with the resources that they have, and I take my hat off to our educators, absolutely amazing.
What about a teacher that you weren't so stoked on? Was there a teacher that you hated?
I won't mention her name.
But you know who you are.
Yeah, she might not know, but I know my fellow classmates would recognise her. But she was a high achiever, not so much with his students.
Oh.
But but you know those ones that do stay in your mind, but the ones that really you can associate and attach to your heart, they make a difference in your entire life.
They absolutely do that.